Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the Wilder Ride podcast. What the hell am I doing? You think I could get my own intro down? Let's try that again.
Inside this room, all of my dreams become realities, and some of my realities become dreams.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here? Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
You are listening to The Wilder Ride, getting wilder by the minute. Here are your hosts, Alan Sanders and Walt Murray.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Wilder Ride Listeners Lounge, a podcast where we used to look at a movie 1 minute at a time, and we will get to a Gene Wilder movie. That's a promise. But we've also changed to where we have a sidecast where we look at the life of a guest 1 moment of their life at a time. I'm your host. I'm Alan Sanders.
I am your co-host, Walt Murray.
And Walt, we always take a few seconds just to kind of catch up on what it's been like for the last week. I don't think I talked to you, but maybe 10 minutes in the last 6 or 7 days. You have been busy.
I have been busy. I have also had laryngitis, which has been just awesome for all the people around me who usually suffer from my speaking. And it's been crazy. I've had a week. I think I told you the week before last I had to facilitate and do some training for PIs around the state of Georgia. And then on the back end of that, I had to play catch up for a few days for being out for the better part of 3 days. And then we've just had some family stuff going on. And then, of course, laryngitis has just been awesome. So it has been, well, and, you know, the fun of owning a house. My daughter comes up on Friday, or I think it's Friday. She comes upstairs and she goes, "Hey, Dad, how come the basement's full of water?" I was like, "Oh, fantastic!"
Wait,
so I go downstairs and the hot water heater has let go and it's all over the basement. So I got to get a plumber to come out, which was a major undertaking. And it turns out that it's ultimately kind of the county's fault that this happened. The pressure in the county water system is too high. So for older houses like mine, there is a valve that, well, all houses have this, but a valve that keeps the water pressure down as it comes in the house. In older houses, they're tending to break. So somewhere in your system, whether it be a toilet or a dishwasher or something else, will break as a result of that. So for me, I was lucky enough that it was my hot water heater.
Oh, lucky you. Yeah, it couldn't have been a sink or a faucet or something that you could have caught. Here's the problem. No. My hot water heater is where I never see it. It's in a control room, or like a, what do you call it? I call it like a mechanical room where like the HVAC is, the hot water. But we walled it all off to make room for a office for my wife and a gym for her business. So unless I consciously say I should go inspect my water heater, I never see it.
Well, I would suggest you check it every once in a while.
Yes.
For me, let me put it this way. It became a very good excuse to purge a lot of stuff out of my basement.
Yeah.
So,
water damage tends to make that decision for you.
Yes. In fact, my pickup truck is now sitting at our garage door full of wet stuff ready to go to the dump.
Oh, wow.
It's been a fantastic weekend.
Well, while you were doing that kind of work in your basement, you're doing the cleanup, unintentional cleanup. I actually finished one honeydew project and got the opening rounds of my other honeydew project in this weekend. So I didn't really get a weekend. I finished the kitchen cabinets that I was building, and I shared that online. So I don't know if anybody thought that was interesting to look at. And then I've already ripped up all the carpet, padding, and the tack boards from our movie room, and now I'm going to start putting the hardwood flooring in that room next. So My job apparently is never done.
Yeah, I'm going to try some hardwood, I think, in a part of our house. And if I screw it up, I screw it up. It's going to be my kind of experiment of being able to get that done and then do some other rooms.
Well, you and I should chat. I'll let you learn all my lessons that I learned screwing up the first room I tried to do. So
that's exactly what I need. A good mentor who really knows how to just screw stuff up really good and learn from it.
Oh, I did a good job the first time, and I've gotten really good after that. The biggest thing, like any job, you got to have the right tools. And so if you don't have the right stuff, you're going to have to invest in them because it really makes your job easier if you're using the right stuff.
Yes. And the other good thing is I have kids who are old enough that I'm not teaching them new words when I screw things up. So.
No, hey, Dad's recycling his old vocabulary.
I try to keep that stuff to a minimum, but every once in a while they learn new PI words that they've never known before.
Right. That's just only what girls, that's what private investigators use as code.
That's right. It's code for I'm a moron.
Boy, did I screw this up. Well, you and I have both been busy with home renovation projects, but at least for, I think for both of us, we both have pickup trucks now. At least I finally have my very first pickup truck, and boy, does that come in handy.
Man, let me tell you, once you've had a pickup truck, it's like you can't not have one.
Right. I can't imagine. I never thought I'd want one, and now that I've got one, I don't know why it took this long to get one.
Yeah, they're great. I mean, I haul stuff in mine all the time.
It's been awesome this past year because my wife will take it when she needs to go to the nursery and pick up whether it's pine bark or bags of mulch or whatever she's doing for the garden. And then I turn around and I've got all the rolls of carpet to take to the dump myself already in the back of the truck that I just didn't get to today with all the storms we've had. So yeah, it's been awesome. It's been awesome to have that truck.
Well, I know I've told you about Moose. I don't know if I've talked about him on the show much, but Moose is a rescue dog that we got this year.
I love that
and
name.
He's
still
giant.
Moose.
I mean, his head is gigantic. He's a, I think they call him a Tennessee tree walker hound. He is loud. I mean, he has the loudest bark ever, and he is the laziest animal I've ever seen. He sleeps all the time. But if I
your
pick
spirit
up the
animal.
Keys, yes, exactly. But if
It's
I pick
Walt
up the
in
keys
dog
to
form.
the pickup truck, he thinks the pickup truck is his. And so he thinks it's time to go ride. He will about go through the window to try to get to the pickup truck. And one day I was cutting grass and I was going to move the truck to the other end of the yard. And he was in the backyard. I've never seen him jump. He tried to go over the fence to try to get to the truck because he just thought, hey, it's time to go. We're going for a ride.
He was motivated.
He was highly motivated.
Well, the thing is, I haven't been able to do much in the way of video work in the last week or so, obviously, with as much going on at home, and looking forward to getting back into the swing. I've got a client lined up for June, but, I bring that up only because we've had a photographer on with us once before, and he specialized in one kind of photography. We've got a guy that we're going to bring on, and we don't dive into politics per se in this in terms of left versus right, whatever, but we do brush alongside what's going on current event-wise, and I could not pass up this opportunity when a friend of mine knew a photographer that not only has made a name for himself in the photography business, but somehow, and we're going to find out in the story, got attached to the Donald Trump campaign and has put out a book as a result. So how cool is that to just have a friend of a friend join us on a podcast here in just a moment?
Yeah, that's really fascinating. And, I'm a big history buff. I think you are too. And whether, the politics aside, just being able to hear from an insider what that was like to be a part of that piece of history, and then to actually be the person who documents it for the rest of us, for the rest of history, is really awesome. I've been looking forward to this for quite a while.
Think about it. Our country has been around for a little over 200 years. That club of people who have ascended to the White House, and there have been our share of good and bad. There have been some policy differences from one side of the aisle to the other, but there's only been 46 to ever hold that office. Isn't that incredible?
It really is. It's really amazing. And when you talk to people who are insiders, and one person I'm working on lining up is a former Secret Service agent who worked under several presidents. And you start to hear about the different idiosyncrasies of each president and how they related to the other former presidents at the time is really fascinating. So it is a small club. It is that, those guys are the only people in the world who can relate to what it's like to be president of the United States. So it is a very interesting world that they travel in.
So let's not waste any more of the audience's time with you and I chatting. Let's bring on now our very special guest. Audience, put your hands together for our guest, photographer extraordinaire, Gene Ho. Gene, welcome to the program.
Hey.
Oh, welcome. Good to be here and great to talk to both of you.
Well, one of the things we like to do when we bring a guest on is we actually say at the beginning, it's about looking at a guest's life moment to moment. And so we always set the Wayback Machine with the first question. And as a photographer, let's ask that question. When did you first discover that was a talent and that was a line of work that you found yourself pursuing?
You know what? I went to college and I was basically on the verge of failing out. So I said, I need an elective here where I could score an easy A, right?
I knew I was going to like you, Gene, and you and I have a lot in common here.
No, that's good strategy. That's good strategy. So I said, you know what? Photography. Hey, I'm Asian. I'm Chinese. I'm going to fit right in on this thing. And so I took the course and ended up with a C+ as on the photography course. But I said, you know what? I love it. I just love it. So I've been doing this since I was about probably like 19, I think. Maybe a little bit, maybe about 20 years old. I started tried to rescue my life by getting a quick A, and then found a new way of making a living.
All right, so let's talk about just the fact that you thought it might be an easy A and turned out to only get a C. I think a lot of people sometimes will look at a class and go, well, that's an artsy thing. That should be real simple. And then you learn there's a lot more to it than just point and click.
Yeah, I mean, I really did. Everyone thinks, okay, well, I'm just going to go pad my GPA a little bit and on this easy course. And then I found out like basically how hard it was, because I didn't realize at the time that it wasn't just it was more technical than I realized. So I didn't really understand all the nuances with the settings of the camera, how it related to things. I thought it was just going to be some artistic thing, and then I ended up, I got a C+ in it, but at the same time, I felt wonderful because I love photography.
So when you start doing that, I mean, based on your experience and how long you've been doing it, I imagine you were still in the film era before the digital were really starting to take off.
Yes, could you just imagine? That's like the funniest thing. Back in the day, just using film. I mean, to imagine now us on our cell phone, but before that, it was like every shot you took, like every click was like $1. It was like it was like 50 cents for the actual film, and then you have to print it out. It was another 40 cents. So yeah, it was very difficult back then because everything was in the days of film.
Well, and you also had to worry about things like shutter speed and lighting and things like that now you can just delete and redo.
Yes. I mean, that's mainly the thing, really half of my career was during the film days. And then the other half was during, the digital age of it. And so really it was interesting watching that change over there. But it was, the hard part with it was, just trying to figure out the technical aspects of being a photographer. And then once you get that down, it was very easy for me.
Well, from any perspective, when you're getting into this, a lot of it is also what you know and being in the right place at the right time. There are a lot of really good photographers that end up being just kind of small time, and some people explode. Do you, looking back at your history, when did you start realizing, not only do I have a knack for this, but I'm starting to get bigger and bigger gigs. I'm being more well known for my photography.
You said something interesting. Like you said, you had a friend, and photographers really stick to one niche, really, or niche. So what ended up happening is I fell into doing wedding photography, and by chance, I happened to do the wedding of an Atlanta Falcon cheerleader. So once I did that, met her friends, and then her friends, which were the other cheerleaders, started dating these professional athletes, and then I started getting high-end weddings because all of a sudden I'm doing, the wedding of millionaires and multimillionaires, sport athletes. And so once you kind of break into that, it kind of becomes easier because then people start to know you, and then your clientele and everyone that follows you in that, it all kind of falls into place. And you have to remember, I've been doing this 30 years.
That's funny because I do the divorces of some of the athletes around Atlanta. So we have kind of something in common there.
Hey, we can work together.
Yes.
we can work together.
We've got the before and the after shots. Well, okay, so now you said the Atlanta Falcons. Now you're in Florida right now. Were you in Georgia, or did you just get...
Right. And just to let you know, I am in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, so it's in Myrtle Beach. But no, I mean, at one time, my photography business was very big. We worked out of about 7 different cities. I had 25 employees, and so we were doing a lot of weddings. And we had, Walt would know, I was right there in Buckhead, the main hub of it in Atlanta. So, it was really, I was almost a local there, just working with the football teams, and ended up doing the Atlanta Falcons cheerleader calendar one year, and just getting to know all the cheerleaders there. And then the rest of the doors opened very quickly after that.
All right, so now let's move forward just a little bit. You started taking also then some celebrity pics, whether it was musicians, whether it was people making their way in politics, actors. When did you start becoming a celebrity photographer outside of wedding?
The best thing about it is, this is the most wonderful thing. All the actors and those people, they're attracted to the sports side of it. And then all the sports people, they're attracted to the Hollywood part of it and all this stuff. So once you get going in that, it kind of, the best way to describe it, especially in wedding photography, people want that prestige of who you photographed before. So once you get going in that, I was doing it about at the 10-year mark as being a photographer. Everything started to fall into place, and good clientele breeds new good clientele. So it became really easy doing it that way.
Gotcha. All right, so I want to, and I'm not trying to go too fast because I do love hearing about the backstory. I've looked at your website. You've got other photographers now that work for you. So when did you get to that point where you said, I'm big enough that I can't do every job coming my way, and I need to start growing my business?
Yeah, I mean, it was. I was one of the first photographers, almost in America, that learned how to scale a photography business and almost duplicate or clone what I do. So at one time, my studio had almost 25 photographers, and basically we would work out of different cities all over the country. And so I learned that all pretty fast. I was probably working as a photographer for maybe 5 years before I had my first employee. So I learned how to do that pretty fast early on.
Some of the photographers we've actually interviewed before. Sorry, Walt, I saw you were about to ask, and I didn't. They said that they had to learn also under other photographers, that they had a knack, but you still don't necessarily get everything just out of osmosis, working with others. Were there any mentors or anybody that you worked under that kind of gave you some tutelage to help sharpen your skills?
No, not really. I mean, for me, the best thing that I think anyone can do, and I really mean this, like no matter what work or type of work, is to just almost like never copy anyone else. Just like invent your own thing, and if you fail in it, then you fail in it. But I mean, everything that I've done in photography, like I never copied another person. I just said, you know what, we're just going to shoot weddings this way. Hey, you know what, we're going to do business this way, and we just did it like that, and it worked out that way. But I never copied anybody in just about anything I've ever done. I just said, you know what, I'm going to do it this way, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And I failed. I have had other businesses I failed at before because I just didn't work out. But whenever I do something, I'm going to do it. I'm going to figure out a way that works for me, and I'm going to do it that way.
Well, I was going to ask a similar question to what Alan was asking, but kind of on the other end, that as you were growing that business, how did you have the confidence to bring people in and teach them your way of shooting wedding videos and things like that, and know that even though that they're artistic minded folks as well, that they're going to do it your way?
Ancient Chinese secret.
All of us on this call actually get the reference to that commercial.
Yes,
yeah,
we're seeing, of that age.
We're judging how old your people are. Like millennials, like what
right.
in the world? What in the world is he talking
about?
I've got
these that commercial.
I've got these Gen Zers getting ready to cancel me, and I've got all the Gen Xers are going, "Oh my God, that's so funny."
No, I mean, you know what? The thing is, I over the years I really enjoyed doing it, and a lot of these photographers that worked for me over the years, they were just like family to me. I mean, by the time you have someone work for me as a photographer, a lot of them were training under me for maybe 2, 3, years, probably like almost some of them almost 4 years before they went out on their own under my umbrella.
Gotcha. So they would go maybe with you as sort of like getting,
Yes.
well, what I would call in the video business B-roll. You would be the main photographer. You might say, hey, can you go and just snap some of this or see how I'm setting this up? So they would kind of learn. So they were basically, you became the master for them.
Yeah, exactly. And for anyone that's listening, I'll honestly tell you how I did it. After a while, you have a photographer that's working under you for 2-3 years, and then they have to get their first, I called it a lead wedding, out of the way. So the first wedding that they're going to do by themselves. And what we did was when they worked with the bride, we would tell them, oh, you like this person? Okay, we're going to be honest with you. This is their first wedding. So we're going to shoot this wedding for you for free. But don't worry, because we're going to get a longtime lead photographer to be his assistant. So basically the longtime lead assistant would be there as a backup to make sure nothing went wrong. And the bride was happy because she got a new photographer with a new vision and all this stuff. But at the same time, that person would know, they feel great. They're getting a wedding absolutely for free.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that's how I built the business, just like that.
All right. Now let's move forward, because at some point, and here's where I don't even know how this works. I realize every candidate that's running for anything probably wants to photo document their journey. How in the world did you find out about or get in the running when Donald Trump threw his name in the hat that he was like, I want to photograph my journey? How did that come about?
You know what? I'd like to say that it was really just like right place at the right time. But basically, this was about 4 months before Donald Trump officially ran for president. And he was doing an event, and it was a convention with other speakers there. So there was other Republican speakers there. I didn't know who any of them were, but a magazine hired me to take pictures at that event. And so I went to this event to take pictures of everyone there. But it just happened that the Donald Trump people knew who I was. And basically when they saw me there, they said, hey, would you like to be, Trump's photographer for the day? Truth be told, I mean, Donald Trump didn't know who I was, but his crew did. And then, so they invited me to meet Donald Trump. At least from my point, I got along with him very well. And so I did that first event as his official photographer for just that one event, handed in my photos. And then lo and behold, like a month later, after I send them in, I get like a handwritten note from Donald Trump saying, hey, great pictures. Thank you very much, Gene. And then from there, we're off and running.
So we all have kind of the public persona of who Donald Trump was or is. Did you find him to be that bigger than life personality when you first met him, or did you find him to be kind of a normal guy? How did you find him to be?
Well, here's the thing. A lot of people have to remember that I've been a celebrity photographer for 25 years. I photographed many, many celebrities, and not all of them, but some of the celebrities I met ended up being like the biggest jerks, idiots in the world. I mean, I grew up in the era having posters of some of these people in my bedroom as a child. And then later on, I'm taking a picture. I'm like, oh my goodness, this guy, I used to have posters of this guy in my room, and he's like the biggest jerk. And so when I first met Donald Trump, I'll be honest, I was like, probably going to be a jerk, whatever. But I met him, and I liked him. He was very charming, and I think I know this is not a political podcast or show, but at the same time, I mean, I liked him. I really did. And he was a wonderful person to me and a wonderful person to other people.
All right, because I don't want to go like too quickly through this, because there had to have been at least that first initial meeting where as many celebrities as you've met, you still are meeting somebody that's known around the world. There had to have been a little bit of the, oh my gosh, I'm getting ready to go talk to this guy who wants me to meet him to chat about documenting my run for the presidency of the United States. That had to be like stressful.
Alan, I travel around the country talking about these stories, and I joke with everyone, but it's true. I say that the thing about meeting Donald Trump is just to act like, it's like a normal everyday thing. So I'm like, I'm on his airplane. I say, hello, Mr. Trump, how you doing? And meanwhile, I'm texting my wife, oh, I can't believe it. I'm on this plane. Like I'm freaking out. But I'm totally playing it cool. I'm like, oh, Mr. Trump, this is a nice fabric that you have on this plane. What is it? Cashmere? It's just like just totally just like playing it cool. And then so that's how it went. But I loved it. I loved every minute of it.
All right. So once, when did you know? Like, what was the official word? Did he tell you? Did you get a letter? When did you know? Hey, we want to bring you on to be our photojournalist to basically be behind the scenes and just document what's going on with our run for the presidency.
Okay, so after the first time, so I just did that one job for them, and it was like one job done, and then I send the pictures in, and then Donald Trump himself is writing notes to me. Hey, thank you, Gene. Wonderful. These are great photos. Didn't think anything of it at all, and then lo and behold, they call me back for another event. So this was maybe like a month later. Say, hey, we'd like to like to have you come down again to shoot this event. I photographed that event, and I knew, Alan, I knew 2 days later that there would be another event, but they did not invite me to the next event. This next event was probably 3 hours down the road. So 2 days later, there's another event, and it was at like 4 a.m. I got up at 4 a.m., put on a jacket, and even though they didn't ask me to, I just drove down to the event to show up for work, even though Trump and them didn't ask me. So I felt like an idiot. I it's 4 a.m. I'm in a suit, and my wife's looking at me like I'm embarrassed that I'm showing up for a job that they didn't ask me to show up for. So it was almost like, what in the world are you doing? And then so I just showed up. And then at the time, the campaign manager was a man called Corey Lewandowski. He sees me there, and I'm like freaking out, like basically thinking he's going to say, what in the world are you doing here? We didn't ask you to come and all this stuff. And then once I saw him there, Corey Lewandowski says, hey, Gene, we don't need you at this event, but there's another event just down the road. So go down there first and meet me down there. And I guess it was part my initiative to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to go there. I'm going to show up. For whatever reason, from then on, I was the personal photographer until the very last day of the campaign. So about 2 years for that time.
Wow. So how much access do you have to the candidate as you're going through that? Because I know some days of the campaign are great. They're filling huge stadiums to capacity. And then other days you have like the TMZ audio come out that has to be just crushing for the campaign. So how much do they let you in? How much do they just say you can only shoot this? How much freedom do you have?
Early on, I had all the freedom. For the first year, I had all the freedom that I needed. In fact, the first year, I had the ability to call meet and greets. So like basically I say, hey, Walt, would you like to meet Donald Trump? Then I could call you up, text you, and then we would go down and meet him. But then when it got really big, then Secret Service came in, and then all the games changed. I can't remember if it was Alan or Walt said that you had a Secret Service friend.
Walt.
But after that, I had the access, but it was limited by Secret Service. And it was wonderful because like I would be backstage photographing Donald Trump, but basically I had to show up to work about 3 hours ahead of time, get checked in by Secret Service. And it wasn't as glamorous as most people think. I was literally in a back room talking to Secret Service, a Secret Service agent or two of them, for hours on end, waiting for Donald Trump to walk into the room so I could get the pictures and then leave. So it sounds glamorous, but it's later on, it was very limited to where Secret Service said you can go and you can't go.
Is that as the campaign was slowly whittling down the field? Because initially there were 20-some candidates on the Republican side all vying, and a lot of people thought, well, Donald Trump, you're doing this for self-aggrandizement. You're not really, really interested. Everybody thought it was sort of a joke. And then as people started to peel away and he was gaining momentum, it started to shift. And people started to go, maybe he really means it.
Yeah, I was there the first day that he had Secret Service. And I mean, the whole campaign felt like this was we felt like we're here. We're here. He had Secret Service. At the time, the only other candidate on the Republican side that had it was Ben Carson. And so it was Ben Carson and Donald Trump that had the Secret Service. But I mean, it was a big deal during that time to have that, and it felt very presidential. But it also changed the dynamic. Early on, the first year was very, very fun. I mean, you to go there, he had his same bodyguards. You would joke with them, walk anywhere you want. It was wonderful. And then Secret Service, it was like the second year it got very real.
Yeah, the Secret Service does not mess around. They're serious guys.
Yeah, we should be very proud of those people working there. They're excellent at what they do.
Mm-hmm.
So did they limit what you were allowed to shoot pictures of at that point, or was it just that limited access time that they had?
No, I had I could shoot whatever I wanted, and during the rallies, the press photographers had to stay in a certain box or a certain area. They call it the pit. But I was able to wander basically anywhere I wanted to and take anything. Probably the only thing that I self-censored myself, I was backstage one day and I actually saw Donald Trump fixing his hair. And I was just so tempted to get a picture of it. But I just figured, click and then you're fired, But I really, really wanted to. But
that would have been the most famous picture of the decade.
I saw it. I mean, I saw the hairspray and everything. It was a beautiful sight to behold.
Okay, now I want to get to where you are at a point where you are called around to speak and give your stories, and so you're sharing with us. For me, the first time hearing them, but you had a chance to go across the country, so you probably have some good anecdotes of moments on the campaign trail. So can you, if you can, and I'm going to try to go through a couple of motions here. Do you have a moment where Donald Trump seemed vulnerable? Do you remember a time where you're like, wow, here's this powerful billionaire magnate, and now he seems the most approachable, just vulnerable I've ever seen him?
Really quick, and I'll definitely answer that, but I find it, because you guys are movie people, I tell people is like, my favorite movie is Back to the Future, the trilogy. Mm-hmm. So I love that. But could you imagine, the people in Back to the Future 1, they never thought it would be like a runaway hit. And yet these people, for the rest of their lives, can do the Comic-Cons or whatever. They always have a job because they're talking about stories about being in Back to the Future. So in many ways, I feel like that. I'm on tour now promoting my book, and forever I have all these stories with that. But so I thought that was interesting. But yeah, you have to remember, I was there for all the ups and downs. And, without saying, like, there was the moment where they let you grab them by the pee. There was that moment. And after that, I mean, I've never seen it before. I mean, there was a lot of things that we thought that this campaign was over, but, having that happen and then showing up for work the following day, just to see Donald Trump just like a little bit, reserved, to say the least. That was hard. And a lot of people don't realize that he actually lost his first ever election. This was the Iowa caucus. He actually lost the very first time he was on a ballot. He lost. Mm-hmm. He lost. So, I mean, I was there for the ups and downs. But, the one thing that I found very interesting with it is that, you have a person here in Donald Trump, like, he bounces back really, really quickly. I mean, even if you see him for a little bit, if you could even glimpse at it, if you could even notice it, anything, he bounces back really fast.
Well, then the flip side of my question, when the vulnerable, what about, and I can go really big, but actually, I know how he felt about our troops. I know from behind the scenes, hearing other people, a lot of times you get painted as a cartoon character in the media, but that's not reality. What did you see when it came to the troops, to the people working with him, the day-to-day Donald Trump, and knowing he wasn't alone, that he had people around him?
Oh, man, Alan, could you imagine this? I'm backstage, and this happened multiple times. I'm backstage in a VIP holding area. So I take the pictures of whoever's backstage in the VIPs. And the VIPs were sometimes campaign workers, whoever. But there were always celebrities backstage. So these celebrities would be hanging out. We're all in a room waiting for Donald Trump to appear. And you know who the celebrities are. And then so you would see Donald Trump walk into the room, and he would bypass all the celebrities, even though we all knew they were there. But he didn't beeline to the celebrities. He went to the back of the room where if they were men in uniform, first responders, or whatever. He'd go back there and shake all their hands as if they, because to him it was like they were the important people. And then he would circle back and then shake hands with the celebrities. It was bizarre to see, because I know that most people walk into the room and they're looking at people like, oh, hello, senator or whatever actor, and they shake their hands first. It was beautiful to see, really.
I do remember several times, even when he was president, when he would be caught on a hot mic talking with firemen or policemen, and you would think that he was there to serve them, not the reverse. And he just seemed to have that attitude for the first responders and for our military.
Yeah, there was one time. I mean, Alan, there was there was traffic cops. So he's walking down the street, he sees two traffic cops, and he walks over there and he's having a conversation with them. I mean, it was just to see whether regardless of how people feel about him. I mean, it was just like there's so much that a person can learn from just watching this person. It was wonderful to witness.
Well, I've long said that there are people in politics who I am really diametrically opposed to their politics, but there are certain things about them that I respect. And, if the way they treat their staff, the way that they, handle their families in those situations, those always stand out to me. And so it is good to hear that the president was like that with people around who he really didn't have to spend time with and didn't have to acknowledge.
Absolutely. I mean, it was wonderful, really. And there's so much just watching that you can learn from, because it changes the way you view things. I know some of people. I know General Flynn was telling me about this. That General Flynn was saying, like, I hate when you're talking to people and they're looking over your shoulder to see who's more important than you in the room. And I will say, I mean, could I have been guilty of that at times? I'm sure. You're just like, you're talking to someone and your eyes are scanning the room. Who else is more important than the person right in front of you? But Donald Trump, I mean, he had that down perfect. He never did that.
Wow. Well, he's been in business for a very, very long time, and there's certainly that sense of confidence. Maybe he didn't think he had to.
Yeah, whatever it is, it was worthy of imitation for anybody, and it was worthy just to see that firsthand. And I was like, wow, that's neat how this guy. And you look at that and you're like, no wonder why he's so successful in what he does. I mean, it works out that way for him.
All right, so now here's a question for somebody who's been behind the scenes and been with him, been with his staff, been around and watched, because like you said, you saw the ups and downs, you saw the good days, the bad days. What was it like seeing the reality of what was happening day in and day out versus what was being reported?
Yeah, I think that's why I became such a supporter of Donald Trump. Is basically, I'm the type of person, and I had this because being a photographer for many years, there was a lot of people before all this political stuff that was jealous of my career, because I was doing these high profile jobs, doing these high profile weddings, setting up studios all over the country to do these high end wedding photography. And so that breeds a lot of jealousy. And I get it. I do get it. But I couldn't stand it when people would say to me, oh, Gene Ho, he's this or he's that. He's such a horrible person. And I'm like, guys, you haven't even met me. You haven't even spent any time with me. So that has always been very important. And then, so when I saw how Donald Trump was to me, was to other people, was to the people that work for him and the people around him, I was very defensive in that when I saw the media try to paint a picture of Donald Trump opposite of what I was seeing personally.
It has to be frustrating, because there is this sense that there are people in places, especially in journalistic circles, that want to pick winners and losers based on what they like rather than what's real.
Yes, I mean that without getting too deep into it, because I know there's not a political discussion, but really at the end of the day, ultimately we all have opinions and we all make our decisions, but find the source of it. I mean, find people that was close to him, that know him, that was part of what he was doing, with really no reason to lie about it or whatever. I mean, just offhand, like with my book, I didn't have a non-disclosure agreement. I could have lied and told stories about Donald Trump and made a lot of money on that, but I just decided to put it right where it was and just tell the truth. And then what I saw was a very charming man that was doing things because he loved our country.
So, in the time that you were with the Trump campaign, what was your favorite moment as a photographer?
Oh, you know what? There's no doubt. Halfway through, like I said, early on, I had the ability to call meet and greets. So early on, I never, for the first year, I never invited my wife or my son to meet Donald Trump because I thought it would always be there. You'd be like, oh yeah, well, we won't do it this time because he'll be back and I'll take you there and we'll meet Donald Trump. And then all of a sudden, I mean, Secret Service is there. And then now I got to make an appointment to have my wife and my son meet Donald Trump. And so it was about a year after that, I've already been working with Trump, introduced my wife and my son, which, by the way, my son is biracial. So to have Donald Trump look at my son and dote on my son like it was his own grandchild. I mean, he was just looking at my son. Oh, beautiful, beautiful. And he was talking to my wife, and he was just saying things like, Gene's such an asset to the campaign, all this stuff. And you just don't know because it's almost like going to the company picnic and your family meeting your boss for the first time. You don't know if your boss is going to be like, oh, hey, this is my family. And then the boss says, oh, yeah, you got the hot dogs? You're almost done with that? You just don't know what you're going to get when you introduce your family to Donald Trump. You don't know if he's going to be like, yeah, okay, Gene, yeah, whatever. Okay, he was looking at my wife, bragging on me, which to me made me feel great because I'm like, yeah, my wife, this is my boss, and he's telling my wife great things about me. But I didn't know. I'll be honest, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know how the boss would react to my family about me, and the fact that he was just like you could honestly see he loved my son. It was just wonderful. He won me over.
All right. I don't want, as you've mentioned, and part of it is hard because we have to brush alongside the politics and the reporting. But let me ask this: did you have because and I'm only asking this because of what you just said, he won you over. Did you have an opinion initially of politicians, maybe in general, and Donald Trump specifically?
Yeah, I mean, and I'll softball. I mean, your audience is smart and they'll understand. But I mean, I was a liberal. I mean, I was the shining example of the liberal community, and they loved me. My studio sponsored all the events that you would expect a liberal company to support. We supported and put my company name on LGBT events, sponsored by Gene Ho Photography and all this stuff. We did everything. I mean, I was beloved by the liberal community. And it's all cool, but the thing is, the reason why I was such a liberal was this whole thought that as liberals, you don't judge me and I don't judge you. You could hate me and that's fine, but you got to meet me, spend time with me, and then you could hate me all you want because, I did something wrong to you. But I don't like it when people hate me for no reason. And likewise, I don't like it when people hate Donald Trump for no reason. And I don't like when people hate Alan and Walt for no reason. You gotta that's the whole thing about liberalism.
I mean, there are reasons for that.
Yeah, no, we earn the hate. I mean, we're gonna do it right.
You're a little bit, Walt, let's not talk about Walt. Walt, I can understand him. Fine.
Well, one thing's for sure, we all have senses of humor too, which I think is important.
Yeah. Well, you know what? That's how it was. And, I really, to be honest, I don't think I've changed, if anything. I mean, I'm still like that today. And I just feel like, hey, that's fine, but just get to know me and then hate me. And then it's like, okay, cool. You hate me because I did this to you or whatever. I'm right. Sure you can find people, but
let me at least earn it. Let me do something to harm you before you decide.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, I mean, that's how I felt about the whole thing. And I feel like the same way today. I feel that for the most part on that, I have not changed. I
You know,
have not changed at all.
it's funny you say that because, I fully embrace any of the libertarian ideals out there. I'm very much a constitutionalist, and that says you don't belong in my house, you don't belong in my bedroom, you don't belong in my private life. If I'm not trampling on your rights, don't take away what I want to do as long as I'm not harming somebody else.
Exactly.
And so, when you support things like the LGBT movement or you support gay rights, that's not conservative or liberal in my mind. That's just learning how to make sure people are treated honestly and fairly, period. There's nothing wrong with that.
Alan, to show how much like it didn't matter to me per se, and I consider myself a conservative today, but my children, my two younger children, grew up with a nanny that was LGBT. So I was right in the midst of it, and it's not like I changed in any way. It's like if still to this day, could she do the job? She did a great job. So like, what difference would it make?
Exactly.
And I think that's the big thing, Gene, is that you want to take people for who they are, and put whatever label on you want. But when you get to know people and meet them at the individual level, get to know what's important to them, we have a lot more in common than we have different.
Correct.
Absolutely, Walt.
All right, so I know we're getting close to to about an hour with you, and I know you've got another live stream coming up in a little bit. Want to make sure you have time to freshen up, so we'll start to wind down. We've got a few more things I want to get to. Obviously, your book. Let me ask you this: you had all of these photos. At what point did you decide I need to start putting together my story as I was documenting the run-up to the presidency for Donald Trump?
Right. Actually, you know what? Right after the campaign was over, the idea was always to put a book, and originally it was just going to be a photo book that I was going to rush out before Inauguration Day. But during that time, I said, you know what? It would be really neat to tell some stories about it. And so, like most of these stories that I told you about today, obviously there's other stories, but these are the ones I actually wrote them in a book. And I mean, gave people insight on what it was like to be there at the time. So the book is called Trumpography, and basically it's been out for a while now, but it always trends in the Amazon bestseller because people are they still are thirsting for what it's like to be around Donald Trump.
Well, and like Walt said, and I think even I was alluding to at the beginning, love him or hate him, he is the 45th president of the United States, a very exclusive club. To have the photo documentation of his journey is history. You're holding history in your hands.
Alan, the one of the coolest things in the book, and it's mostly stories, but the one of the coolest things is one of his first rallies that he went to, his first events. It was like maybe 75 people in the room. Like he would start speaking, and people would walk in late to the event. Imagine another so-called rally where he's in a middle school gym, and the bleachers are totally empty except for some on the basketball court. There's some chairs there. It was bizarre to see it grow from that small to where it ended up to be. It's fascinating.
So if someone is listening and they didn't even know that there was this photo book, they didn't know anything about Gene Ho photography, they didn't know that this was even documented, where can people find the book?
Thank you. It's very simple. My name is Gene Ho, so it's GENEHO. So if you just go to geneho.com, you can follow the links there and take a look at the book. And it's fascinating to see and understand that part of history that won't repeat itself like that again.
I'm going to ask you to repeat a story that you did on one of the talk shows. I don't want to necessarily plug one show or another, but you are on the talk show circuit, but it made me crack up. And I don't know if you know the story I'm talking about, but I'll try to lead you there.
Lead me there.
The story about somebody seeing you across the casino floor and they recognized you, only they recognized you as somebody completely different.
So Alan, like I'm doing this stuff and I'm getting famous, right? I'm getting famous. Really, I mean, I'm like on Huckabee, I'm selling the books. I'm there, and then someone goes, "Oh, I know who you are. You're," and I'm like, "Right, I'm Gene Ho," and they go, "No, you're the lead singer from the band Journey." It's so funny because I mean, I'm like, I don't look like a conservative photographer. I have long hair, black hair, Asian, so.
I cracked up when I heard that story because I could so easily see somebody mistake you because there is a resemblance, obviously, but
I know. Well, when it happened there, it was actually in Reno, and I'm like, guys, do you think the lead singer from the band Journey is going to be staying at the circus?
That's awesome. All right, before I can let you go, because we've gone moment to moment, we've gone from photography up through growing your business to being selected to being on the campaign trail to the publication. You're in the midst of something that I don't know that you ever thought you would do earlier in your career, but something triggered in you to get involved in politics now. You want to run for the mayor of Myrtle Beach.
Yes, I am running for mayor of Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And if I could plug it, GeneHo4Mayor.com. That's FOR. GeneHo4Mayor.com. But you know what? The whole thing about us is like, I spent 2 years on the road telling people, hey, do your part, do your part, do your part. And so I'm going to do what I feel is my part and run for mayor. And then we'll be really excited to see what kind of change that can be made.
Well, I think that's awesome, Gene. And my great grandfather was the mayor of their hometown, and my dad had relayed a couple of stories last year when he was a guest on our show, as the town in Mississippi was going through some of the changes in the racial realm as different things were going on, and it is amazing how much influence or damage a local politician can have. So we'll be pulling for you. I'm definitely pulling for you, and we hope that campaign goes well.
Thank you very much, and I really appreciate it. And you know what? It's all of us are asking, a lot of people, not just me, what can I do personally? So it's up to us to decide.
One of the things I say a lot, I have a radio show, is we always get fascinated and unfortunately get caught up at the national level. But in all honesty, it's your local politicians, it's your city school board or your county school board or county commissions, your mayors, your selectmen. Those are the ones who have direct influence on your life day in and day out. And oh, by the way, you probably meet them in the street. You should be paying as much attention, if not more, to local politics versus national.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's not just like, it doesn't even have to be mayor. It could be school board that you run for or volunteering somewhere or whatever, just like, figure out a way to plug in. Don't be afraid of the system, which, to be honest, is set up to scare people away from running because they don't know how to start.
Well, let's face it, you do in this age of social media and instantaneous commentary, you've got to have some intestinal fortitude. And I guess hanging around with Donald Trump for a couple of years probably taught you just how much fortitude you need to have.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Gene, we always end with this question. Where do you see yourself 5 years from now?
You know what? I love what I'm doing now. As long as, it goes back to that thing where it says, as long as I'm happy or whatever, I just want to be where I am right now, happy with my family and having the satisfaction, regardless, of saying to my children, hey, you know what? I did what I could have done during the time that I was here. So it would be wonderful.
Fantastic. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Tara Bain one more time, who...
oh, she's wonderful. Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
For that, I was going to say, linking her to your social media, you do some videos pretty often on TikTok as sort of like virtual town halls. If somebody wants to follow you, watch you, maybe learn a little bit more about you, how can they do that on social media?
Right. First of all, if you're on Facebook, if you go to Gene Ho Personal, that's my personal page. Gene Personal, but who knew there's a big community of older people. I thought TikTok was all about teenage children dancing, but it's not. I post videos there and stories about Donald Trump. So just search out Gene Ho on TikTok and you'll find me there. Gene_Ho.
What about Twitter or Instagram? Are you there?
You know what? Yeah, I'm on Instagram, Gene Ho Photo there. I'm on Twitter as well, but lately I've shied away from some of those bigger platforms. I enjoy talking to people on these other platforms like TikTok and Facebook. So,
Gene, it has been such a pleasure meeting you, and the fact that you took time out of your busy schedule, not only running for mayor, but your business and everything, to talk with us on our show. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And Walt, it was a pleasure as well. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Gene.
Thank you very much. And Alan, thank you so much for this opportunity.
All right. We'll talk to you soon. And I know you got to get ready for your next show. So break a leg, and best of luck to you with the book sales.
Okay. Thank you so much, guys.
All right. Take care.
Thanks, Gene.
Bye-bye. Well, we have completed our guest segment, and now it is time for us to look at a wonderful, near Academy Award-winning level film. It's time for...
God, what is this? Stop it! I didn't get me out of this hell!
Walt, what was the lucky film to watch this week?
Well, the lucky film was Piranhaconda. And let me just say, I probably don't have to say a whole lot after giving you the name of this piece of garbage. It's everything that you would think Piranhaconda would be. The difference in
I don't
this
know.
one,
What do you think I think Piranhaconda would be?
Well, knowing your taste in movies, I would say you think it's awesome. So,
Wow.
you know, it's a weird thing because I have not even been able to find anywhere on the web where the description is actually the description of what the movie is. So it's kind of strange. So anyway, IMDb, this is one of those I'm going to get flustered over. I can tell you right now. IMDb says 2 piranha anaconda hybrid creatures hunt down the scientist who stole their egg in a film crew making a slasher film in the jungle. Technically, this is true, but I would say that it never really got developed that much. And believe it or not, this thing's been around since 2012. I can't believe you haven't seen it. It has a 2.9 on IMDb.
We've hit a new low. We have hit a new low.
But here's the crazy thing about this, Alan. Do you know who Michael Madsen is?
Yeah, I know Michael Madsen. He's a great sort of that bad guy actor. He's always used in Quentin Tarantino flicks, and he was also, I thought he was in what's the name of the movie with Johnny Depp where he goes undercover?
Yes, Donnie Brasco.
Donnie Brasco.
He is absolutely in that film. He is also in this piece of shit.
No way.
He is the number 2 guy on the bill in this movie.
Did he owe someone a favor? Did they have pictures of him, with like a mule? Or, I mean...
I cannot imagine what got him to read this script and say, this is my next great movie. The other person that's in this is Rachel Hunter. You may know Rachel Hunter from things like Being Married to Rod Stewart.
Oh, yeah.
So she didn't need the money, but she wanted to be in this movie. It is not good. It is... it's almost watchable for about the first half hour or so, but then you just realize that every major character is, and it is kind of the way these movies are, but it's just there as fodder. There are several people that you think, oh, well, this person's going to have some major part in killing off the Piranhaconda, but they don't. They just get eaten by the Piranhaconda in these very boring ways, and like every death is exactly the same as the death before it. So it really is just kind of boring. The acting is terrible, even from Michael Madsen. He may have gotten an award for overacting a little bit in it, but he's not good, and you really expect a whole lot more from him. The CGI was awful. They didn't even really try that hard. It's almost like they had the afternoon to do it. The story is awful. And even the end is so bad that I would say just don't even watch this movie because the end is completely disappointing. It leaves you with no closure, no emotional catharsis, no interest in a second Piranhaconda outing. It's just bad. And if you ever watched movies and you're like, I really hope that there's no clear conclusion to this story.
I want to be left completely ambiguous and feel like I've wasted an
Right.
hour and a half of my time.
This doesn't even do that. It kind of ends and you're like, well, that sucked. So, I would say, Meowie Halloween is still my most hated movie because it was so intellectually insulting. But this one is just cinematically insulting.
All right, I want to read for you. I just happened to pull this up, and it was the top comment of this movie. It was a year ago. Someone who's nameless and faceless gave it 1 out of 5 stars, but I want to read their review because I want you to react to the review of someone who also watched this movie.
Okay, I'm all for it.
A great movie for trashing. Watched it under the illegitimate title of Anaconda. Apparently he thought he was going to watch something else and someone had mislabeled it when he downloaded it for free. The monster is never referred to actually as Piranaconda, just giant snake or random mutation because of the scientists in the movie, constant lack of continuity, clearly missing scenes, obvious reshoots, and then puts in parentheses, the blonde C-story actress obviously got plastic surgery sometime between primary and reshoots, so good on her, but she literally can't talk for the Botox. And the awful opening-closing music sounds like a direct rip of the old Spider-Man theme. If you know bad monster movies, you can predict beat for beat the generic character traits and the lines. Location is gorgeous, but obviously shot at a resort or botanical garden or nearby public parks for the most part. The practical model is much better than any of the CGI. Spoilers, everyone dies, so A+ for that.
I guess in retrospect, probably all of them dying was a bonus.
Oh, wait, he's got one more line. There's a more here. Watch with your favorite legal mind-altering substance and a friend, or 4.
Yeah, okay, so I think that is where I went wrong. I did not take a gummy before I watched this movie. Had I taken a gummy before this movie, I might have made it through unscathed. But I don't even know that would help. Like you had the old movie from when we were in high school, the Pink Floyd The Wall.
Uh-huh.
And everybody who watched it was like, "Oh, it was good. It was okay." Unless you were high, then it was like, "Oh man, best movie I've ever seen." This movie, I think the volume of mushrooms you would have to take to watch this movie and enjoy it might kill you.
It's not worth the ensuing heart attack, huh?
It is not. The hospitalization that you would have as a result of this would not be worth it. And and there are all kinds of ways to judge movies, but if they showed this on like late night Cinemax, people might cancel their subscription.
I just can't believe Michael Madsen's in it.
Well, see, and that's the crazy thing. Halfway through it, I'm like, wait, that's the dude from Donnie Brasco. And I looked it up and I was like, this guy should be ashamed of himself. He's been in actual movies and he's in this piece of garbage.
Hey, it goes to show how much story and direction makes for a performance. We know that from, look, George Lucas had all the money in the world and Liam Neeson couldn't look like he could act his way out of a paper bag in the first Star Wars prequel.
Yeah, and I think this one probably started out with good intentions, but the follow-through was just horrible. And I'm sure, those last few days of production, Michael Madsen had to just be like, yeah, this was a huge freaking mistake.
It does make you want to find out, was it like a distant cousin? Was it like the wife's, family members going to film school and saying, come on, just be in his movie. It's going to be stupid, but who cares? Just bring it some credibility. It makes you wonder, because you got to think Michael Madsen is at least able to say, I don't need the money right now. I can pick and choose the movies I want.
Oh, without a doubt. I would say that the one draw on this for him may have been that it was shot on location in Hawaii.
Ah.
So, maybe take the family for a vacation. He probably worked maybe a week on this. Production could not have been much longer than that. But it really is just a bad movie. The production is awful. I mean, when the plot keywords are No survivors, exploding helicopter, giant snake, gore, and film crew. It doesn't really bode well for a very good movie.
All right. Well, we'll just have to see what our listeners pick to torment you with next week.
Well, in some ways, Alan, I kind of blame myself. I maybe should start watching the trailers on some of these and figure out if it's worth watching.
Before you post the poll?
Yeah, so if y'all will do better, I will do better. Let's just make that deal.
All right. Well, now it's time for us to get to the news. Some crazy things we found online, and you know it's got to be true since it was on the internet. A new segment we call...
It's no bullshit.
And Walt, you have the first story.
Well, Alan, this one's going to be great because, you know, you and I have had our moments during this COVID outbreak where we've said, yeah, this has gone a little too far, or they're kind of missing the boat here. Well, a Japanese town got COVID-19 money from the government. And how would you think they would spend that money?
On jobs, on, I don't know, employment?
Masks, Lysol,
cleaning supplies.
All those things that go with COVID, right?
Right, sure.
Sure. And also the one thing we left out, a giant squid statue.
Wrong, sir. Wrong.
So from...
Wait, whoa, huh?
Right, exactly. So from...
They want to release the Kraken in statue form.
In statue form, exactly. Gigantic. So Kotaku.com gives us this story. The town of Noto in some province of Japan received millions of yen due to the impact of COVID-19. The money was part of a rural revitalization project to help the countryside in the wake of the virus. According to Yahoo News Japan, local governments such as Noto's would decide how to spend the money, such as infection countermeasures or money to help close businesses. Noto is known for squid, and around 25 million yen, or $228,000, of the funds were set aside for a huge squid monument to entice tourists to visit the area once the pandemic is over.
You are talking about the nonsensical ravings of a lunatic mind.
The pandemic is not over. Some of the country's most metropolitan areas, including Tokyo, Osaka, and Kyoto, are currently under a state of emergency with COVID-19 cases hitting record numbers. The giant squid is 29 and a half feet across, 13 feet high, and 42 feet long.
That's a big squid.
FNN reports that the total cost of the project was 27 million yen, or $246,000.
This is the problem when you just randomly give way too much money to people who don't know what to do with it.
Yes, exactly right. As a local news source says, there have been questions among locals over whether this was necessary or even as an effective way to spend the money.
Shut up.
The individual in charge did claim that the funds didn't need to have a direct relationship to COVID-19 and that the town was taking a long post-pandemic view with the project.
It's no bullshit.
Wow.
I gotta be honest, I kind of love that.
I like that line. You know, they're trying to be like, they're trying to softball it. Had some questions about.
Yes.
We would like
In other
to
words,
just.
What the hell?
We were just curious. What were you thinking? Just do you care to maybe we just don't get it.
Yeah. I don't know. You know, I always question these government spending projects, but for once, I'm kind of on board with just a big screwball nonsense project to kind of put the thumb in the eye of a lot of people.
Wow. Well, you know, like I said, it's what happens when you give people way too much free money. Sometimes they just don't know what to do with it productively.
Yeah, I know some people like that.
All right, well, I'm going to go completely the opposite end of the spectrum here, and I'm going to get in the gutter. You ready?
Let's hear it.
On April 26th, a woman was jogging in the woods in southeastern Germany near the town of Sunnen. Suddenly, she noticed something strange that stopped her dead in her tracks. On the ground by the path was an old plastic bag, and inside was something that looked exactly like a hand grenade.
Holy cow.
Now, concerned for the safety of herself and others, the woman didn't waste time. She pulled out her mobile phone and immediately called the emergency number. Her phone call sparked a full-blown bomb disposal unit. The bomb squad from the Bavarian Police Department rushed to the scene as quickly as they could, reported the local news. The bomb defusal experts cleared out the area. Then they approached the grenade and began to immediately go to defusing it. Except there really wasn't anything to defuse. Instead of carrying out a controlled detonation, the bomb squad returned with a hearty chuckle, because when examining the grenade, the explosive experts discovered that it wasn't a grenade at all. Instead, it was a sex toy.
Excuse me while I whip this out.
Oh,
A roughly grenade-shaped butt plug
Oh
of
my
respectable girth.
Well, there's something you don't see every day.
oh my gosh.
The other contents of the plastic bag made the nature of the rubber implement much clearer. According to police, the bag also had an empty tube of lube, 2 used condoms, and a USB cable.
It's no bullshit.
I'm not sure what required charging, but they left it behind.
I'm just confused.
I mean, a grenade-sized butt plug? Damn.
I
That's an overachiever. There's somebody like, no. I don't want thumb size. I want grenade sized.
Well, and I'm just glad that the bomb disposal unit was able to blow it up and make it safe for everyone.
Well, they went to, but they realized there was no need. It was simply a rubber butt plug of what do they call it? Of respectable girth.
Okay. Folks, there are things in society that we like to call trash cans. I would highly encourage you to make use of those when you're done with certain items.
Yeah, look, when you're done, frolicking in the bushes with a friend, properly dispose of your things, not in a plastic bag to be found by unsuspecting joggers who might not know what kind of predilections you have, but rather put them in for proper disposal.
Well, and as we've said here on the Wilder Ride, we're basically libertarians. Whatever you're into, fine. Just leave us out of it.
Right. The minute you trample on my rights is when we have a problem, and right now you have given me something that I need to start thinking about nothing but steel wool to scrub the idea out of my head for the next 10 minutes. You have harmed me. You have harmed me, sir.
All right. Well, so with that, Alan, we move on to something much more classy. WhiskeyRiff.com, a Nashville-based local news source, says, man arrested at Kid Rock's bar for removing colostomy bag and swinging it around.
Ew, something smells rotten around here.
Oh my God, I'm going to get sick. Oh my God.
According to Scan Nashville on Twitter, a call came over the Metro Nashville Police radio last night for assistance at Kid Rock's big-ass honky-tonk rock and roll steakhouse on Lower Broadway. Seems there was a man who was stirring up trouble at the bar, and by that I mean he removed his colostomy bag and was flinging literal poo around at others.
Oh.
According to the scanner traffic, this was the 3rd time the police had been in contact with this man that night, and he had previously refused medical attention both times. Then, when police encountered the man again, he removed his colostomy bag and began the poo flinging on the responding officers. Now, at first, I feel like this is from the article. Now, at first, I feel I need to clarify. There's no indication whether the man was actually inside the bar or out on the street. But can you imagine being out for a night of partying and literal feces starts raining down on you?
Oh.
There's just no coming back from that. Call it a night. Call it a weekend. Call it a year. But you got to call it at that point. It's over. The poo-flinging man was eventually arrested. Thoughts and prayers for the poor officers who had to transport him to the clink. And at the last, one officer was temporarily out of service, having to run home to make a wardrobe change. Got to think he deserves the rest of the night off for that. There's no word yet on what charges the man may be facing, but it looks like Nashville is finally getting back to normal.
It's no bullshit.
It reminds me of the joke about the Chinese author of Brown Spots, Hu Flung Dung. Did you ever used to have that when you were a kid, talking about all these like strange author titles?
I had Who Flung Poo.
Who Flung Poo? Okay. Who Flung Dung? Or let's see, Rusty Bed Springs by I.P. Knightley. Under the Bleachers by Seymour Butts. 50 Yards to the Outhouse by Willie Make It. The sequel by Betty Don't.
Betty Won't.
Betty, you said Betty Won't. I said Betty Don't. Yeah. That's all I kept thinking when you started talking about a colostomy bag slinging around. I'm like, well, that's going to be a mess.
That's a mess. I just
It's going to be like a Jackson Pollock painting, but not worth the same value.
No. No.
Oh, look, Splatterfest. Yay.
Yeah, just, oh, crap.
All right, well, just when you think we can't sink any lower, I've got a story of a teacher. A teacher who took a class trip in Costa Rica. Ready?
This should be good.
Richard Glenn, age 55, threatened students and then took others to a strip club when he was drunk on a school trip to Costa Rica.
Just what do you think you're doing, Dave?
Yep. Glenn was sent home early during the Long Ridge Tower school trip because of his actions. He admitted to gross misconduct and was dismissed, saying he will be banned from teaching for 3 years to learn his lesson. Glenn, or Mr. Glenn as he was referred to in school, had to appear before a misconduct panel. He taught computer classes and was one of the leaders of the group of 16 to 18-year-olds that went to the class trip to Costa Rica. He was supposed to be there for about a month, but was sent home after only 6 days because of his behavior. His actions included, and I put a bullet list together to make it quicker, drinking with pupils, allowing one or more pupils to drink alcohol despite being under the legal age of 18, threatening to kick the head in of one pupil and to kill another, telling one pupil, "I'm not in trouble, you'll be in trouble." After being aggressive to one pupil, he then kissed the boy's forehead and said, "Nah, you're all right." Then taking one or more pupils to a strip club, acting aggressively towards the women leading the trip when she tried to help him back to his tent, and then exposed himself to said woman in a shared hotel room, although it was agreed upon by both parties that it wasn't malicious or sexual, it was simply an accident.
Outstanding.
So, we have a teacher who's been stripped of his teaching duties for at least 3 years to ruminate over his misconduct, over his drunkenness on a field trip, taking some students to a strip club, berating others, and exposing himself to some of the female chaperones also on the trip.
It's amazing. It's astounding. But it's no bullshit.
Dude, please. For the love of humanity. Now, they should have fired him. I mean, 3 years is nothing for that. He should have been gone.
Well, other countries have different rules, so...
Yeah.
They want to give him a chance to learn his lesson. He's 55. This wasn't... If I had said Richard Glenn, age 25, you go, okay, fresh out of college, let himself get a little carried away. He's 55.
Yeah, kind of a moron. Yeah, no, definitely old enough to know better.
I love this one. After berating a pupil, turns around and then kisses him on the forehead and said, "You're all right." I love you, man.
Wow, I'm kind of hoping that there were other problems there that, could be medically diagnosed and dealt with, but it doesn't sound like it.
Well, I love in the official report, they said that his conduct amounted to, check this out, his conduct amounted to misconduct of a serious nature, which fell significantly short of the standards expected of the profession.
Yeah, you think?
You think?
Oh, my gosh.
Anyway, well, give him 3 more years to think about it, and maybe they'll hire him back.
Let's hope not. Let's hope he is done. He can move on to selling car insurance or something.
All right. Well, let us get on to our final segment here. It is time for our entertainment segment. This is that time where we tell you what in the last week we've been watching, what we've been reading, and what we've been listening to. And so, Walt, we'll go to you first. What you been watching?
I am continuing down the road of the Winter Soldier series on Disney Plus. I haven't quite wrapped it up. I think I've got 1 episode left, and it's just a great great series. So really looking forward to having that one wrapped up. And I know that there are a couple more coming right behind it, right?
Well, Loki's the next one. That'll be coming out in June.
Okay. So that one looks really good. I was reading a couple articles on that one earlier this week. That looks great. A couple other things that I want to point out. If you go on Amazon Prime, there are some great movies that are offered on there with the Prime subscription this month. And 3 I wanted to point out real quick. If you've never watched Galaxy Quest or you haven't watched it in a while, that is a fantastic movie. It's kind of a almost like a love letter to sci-fi. So if you've never watched it, this is a great opportunity to do it. Again, just with your Amazon Prime subscription. 48 Hours with Nick Nolte and Eddie Murphy is on there. It's been a while since I've watched it, but I started watching it the other night, and Eddie Murphy is really one of the funniest guys in his time. Just a great comedian, decent dramatic actor, puts that together real well. Nick Nolte plays well off of him. And then you probably remember this, Alan, Buckaroo Banzai.
Yes, an early Peter Weller flick, and talk about a movie way ahead of its time for like superheroes, sci-fi, crazy powers, different characters, all just thrown together in this just amazing, kooky story. I just love it.
Yeah, it's almost like a Marvel before Marvel.
Right.
Because it has just, it's a real endearing movie. It's one I have not watched in a long, long time. So I'm going to be watching that again tonight. But those are just 3 that I had noticed were on Amazon Prime. And I would highly encourage you to take the time to watch those 3 movies if you haven't before.
All right. I have some new things that I decided, I don't know what it was. You know how sometimes it says recommended for you based on your watching habits?
Yes.
So I decided to watch Rush, Beyond the Lighted Stage, the documentary.
I can't believe you haven't seen that before.
I had not ever seen it. And this was before Neil Peart passed away, because they had a great segment with him about how when his child had been killed in a car accident, and then not long after his wife dies, and he just decided to, sort of like our guest from last year, your buddy, decided to
Hawk.
go. Yeah, Hawk. He went on a motorcycle ride for about 6 or 7 months, just had to unplug and just go. And it was an amazing story, because I loved how it went all the way back to them in middle and high school, and playing, like, the circuit in Canada was to go from one Friday night high school dance to the next, and they were playing gymnasiums, and it was incredible to see the band with the previous drummer before they decided they needed a different drummer, and they had seen Neil in a different band, and they made an offer to him, kind of like to come jam with them, and then that they've been together ever since. Just, oh my God, what a great documentary.
And you really see the personalities of the 3 members of the band. And I've always been a Rush fan, but didn't know a whole lot about the 3 individuals. So that was really cool. And just to see them working together, I didn't realize what an introvert Neil Peart is or was. So really just a tremendous documentary. Well, really well done.
Which got me to the next one. ZZ Top, the little band from Texas.
Yeah, that is awesome.
I couldn't believe how good that was. I honestly didn't know how many versions of ZZ Top, and prior to what they were, how these 3 guys kind of like were always kind of just waiting to finally coalesce together into what is ZZ Top.
Yeah, and the lead singer, Dusty, whatever his last name is. I always want to say Dusty Bottoms, but I know that's not right. But just the talent of that band is really showcased in this documentary. So even if you're not a big fan of ZZ Top, I thought it was really, really good.
Yeah, and what I liked most about it is how just completely honest their drummer was. I forgot his first name, but his last name's Beard, and he's the only guy who doesn't actually have a beard. He's the beardless one. But he was a major addict. And at one point, when they had to take a break, he said, I needed to just go into a halfway house. I needed to check myself in and get back to normal, because I had really done everything and anything.
And I can't remember what he said the dollar amount was, but basically the amount of money he burned in that short amount of time, just on drugs, is really, really horrifying.
It is. And he's so matter of fact about it, which you have to get to the point where I guess you realize, what else do I mean, what do I have to hide? I've made my fortunes. I've been part of this band. We have hits from multiple decades, and we still get together and play music. What was really wild is in that documentary, seeing them all three in this sort of dimly lit, setting, just kind of jamming together, and just so cool. Just this idea of a blues band that just kind of, hey, let's just go a little out of tune. Let's go ahead and add a little reverb and just play a little bit faster than the blues, and we've got our own sound. And there is no other band in my lifetime that I've ever heard that sounds like ZZ Top. Like, kind of like Rush has the Rush sound, ZZ Top has the ZZ Top sound.
Yeah, and even before they really hit it big commercially, if LaGrange came on the radio, you knew exactly what song it was.
So, oh yeah, I know any ZZ Top song just about, even if I've never heard their older stuff. I'm just like, oh, that sounds like ZZ Top, and then come to find out, oh yeah, there's a reason. It's ZZ Top, and that led me to my final documentary that I ended up watching this past week. I was on a documentary kick. It was called Echo in the Canyon, and it was about between 1965 and 67 in California, in Laurel Canyon, the number of music acts and musicians that were all living literally on the same street and within the same driving distance of one another. From the Byrds to the Beach Boys to the Mamas and the Papas to Crosby, Stills and Nash. I mean, it was ridiculous. And Jacob Dylan, Bob Dylan's son, actually got this film together and went and interviewed all of these movers and shakers about that style of music that grew out of that canyon between 65 and 67. And how they all worked together and influenced each other. And they actually got modern musicians to go in and re-record these songs, and then did a concert with these songs. And they kept cutting back and forth to the footage of Jacob Dylan and these other artists singing these hit songs from the mid to late 60s. It was phenomenal. If you've not seen it, check it out. Every one of these songs could be released today. It sounds so good.
And the enduring influence that those bands have had on music, there's really no way to even classify. I mean, it is really amazing, and that is a great documentary. I never even realized that those folks were all right. I mean, like, they could hit each other with rocks from their houses. They were so close.
At one point, they were talking to the guys from Crosby, Stills and Nash. They were talking to the Mamas and the Papas, and they said we would just go to each other's house and jam. We'd work out our riffs and our songs, sort of just kind of hanging out. And some people would be getting high, other people would be just kind of eating, but we'd always have our instruments. And all of a sudden we would just start playing along. And next thing you know, it was 2-3 o'clock in the morning. It was just the creative synergy of all of these musicians coming together.
Really amazing.
So
really amazing.
All of those are awesome. And I'll tell you one more. I was on a watching TV kick this week for some reason. Don't get me, I don't know what it was. I was just staying up late watching these. If you have HBO Max, and they're only releasing one episode a week, so they're kind of following that same format now that Disney Plus brought us with The Mandalorian, and they're not binging like Netflix used to, where they would release all the season at once. It's called Mayor of Easttown with Kate Winslet. It is basically an American crime drama series. It's going to be a miniseries. It's on HBO Max. Kate Winslet is doing such an amazing job playing sort of that middle-aged mom whose husband has left her. You find out her son, one of her children, has committed suicide. Her mom lives with her. Just every one of the real-world problems that we can all relate to in sort of a small town in the Northeast, and a murder takes place. She's a detective, but this is gritty. This is real. It feels like I'm watching a documentary, not something creative. It feels unbelievably real when I'm watching it, and I am hooked in it. There's been 3 episodes out so far. The third one just dropped. It's every Sunday, so at the time we're recording, only 3 episodes had dropped, and I just can't wait for the next episode. I want to see how this turns out. They've done such a good job of interweaving these characters to now you're like, I have absolutely no idea who did it.
Wow. So, and I'm sorry, what is that called again?
Mayor, which is her name, Mare, not Mayor, but it always sounds like they're calling her the mayor. But it's Mayor of Easttown.
Okay. I think they had talked about that on Radio Labyrinth last week as well, and mentioned that as an excellent show to watch. So I have to add that to my watch list.
So that's all I've been watching. I have gotten back to, and I didn't want to just keep sounding like the same thing every week. I have watched a few more episodes, season 2 of Star Trek, the original series, and Mirror Mirror has been the most interesting one so far. That's the one where they were having negotiations on this planet for dilithium crystals, and the people there were like, we can't let you have them. And so they said, well, we'll be back. We'll let you think about it. And they teleport up or beam up to the Enterprise, and they get pulled into a parallel dimension where their new version of the Enterprise is a very militant, almost, I would almost argue like the Klingon Empire. In fact, they even call themselves the Empire. Spock has a goatee, and it's very much a brutal, militaristic society, and yet they're trying to figure out how did we get beamed to this parallel universe. That was really, really fun.
I love that episode. I watched that not too long ago, and it really stands out among those early episodes as just one of the best.
So that's what I've been watching.
That's a lot. You have watched a lot of TV.
Wait, I've got one more thing. Sorry, I finished the Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Yeah,
and I was really worried that they were going to go too far down the social justice path. I get that that's an important subplot. And yet they managed to walk that fine line so well. I loved it. And there's one part where the Falcon, who is now the new Captain America, where he just delivers a speech to I don't want to give any spoilers, but to the experimentee who was really angry at our country and really angry at how he'd been treated as one of the first super soldier experimentees. And there's this great touching moment between the two of them. And it just completely kept it from being too maudlin, too one-sided. And you realized, like anything in life, it's a gray. We live in shades of gray. There is no absolute white, absolute black. It's shades of gray. And for Marvel to walk that balance, I was really, really happy. My one fault with it, I will still say I have a hard time in any movie where you're supposed to believe a young teenager or a 19, 20-year-old something can have sway over grown adults. It just bothers me. It strains my belief. The actress that plays the leader of the rebellion, she's a very good actress, but I had a hard time believing that grown adults would follow her to their death. So that is one thing that I thought was a little weak in the series, but all in all, I was very happy with it.
And earlier on, I thought she was playing an older character. And I guess I just wasn't paying much attention. But I kind of came to realize what was going on with her. So, yeah, but I think the rest of the strength of the series makes up for that one thing. But that was a little awkward.
All right, let's move to what are you reading?
I finally finished Running with the Devil, the book about Van Halen. So now I've got like 14 books on my bookshelf that I've accumulated. So I've got to start one of them this week. I'm not sure which one. So I'll let you know next week what I've been crazy enough to dive into.
Okay. For me, I've been so busy watching all of these documentaries, I haven't had a chance to really get into anything. But I will eventually get back into my reading. I just got to get a few of these honey-do list projects complete, including redoing the entire movie room, which the movie room is an important room to me. So,
yeah, well, it definitely is. Definitely is.
All right, let's wrap up. What are you listening to?
Well, I just want to highlight a couple things real quick. The Dirty Harry Minute. Those guys continue to put out just great quality episodes. On Saturday, they dropped an episode on the movie The Deadpool, which I think most of us would agree is the weakest of the Dirty Harry movies. But those guys did a great job of kind of breaking it down. Don't know that they've really come around on it much. Don't know that they got me to come around on it much. But it's still a movie worth watching, and the commentary is real good from those guys, again, on the Dirty Harry Minute.
It's still a Dirty Harry movie.
It is still Dirty Harry. Yeah, it's still Clint Eastwood at his best. I'm still listening to Smartless. Those guys over there, Jason Bateman, Sean Haynes, and Will Arnett do a great job on their show. And Radio Labyrinth, definitely want to listen this week. Tim does not make it because he had been in New York and his wife went into false labor and he had to come back, so he missed the recording. But still, Radio Labyrinth is one of my favorite week in and week out shows to check out. And then History of the Marine Corps. I want to reemphasize that one. We don't even know the guy from History of the Marine Corps, I don't think, but just an excellent podcast. Well done. Great history. They do great research. So check that out if you get a chance. If you have any inkling of enjoying history, that is a fantastic podcast.
Well, you know how on our Facebook page and on our group, we always ask our listeners to do the daily vote in the podcast magazine Hot 50. And we've been talking about this History of the Marine Corps for a while. I don't know if it's our group that's helped, but for the first time ever, they made it into that list. So
fantastic! Good for them.
I think in the late 20s, which is not a bad place to find themselves. So all of our listeners that took a second to maybe listen and then vote for them, thank you very much for helping put them in the Hot 50.
Absolutely, and I think we were number 3 this month, right?
We were number 3. That's not too bad. Thank you, everybody who's remembering to vote every day for your top 3 podcasts. You can vote for 3 podcasts at a time every day. And so we really appreciate it.
Yeah. Also, just wanted to point out something real quick before we go. If you're not following him already, follow Shane Kimbrough, a guest from last year. Shane, of course, is now the commander of the International Space Station. You can hear his interview with us from last season by going back and looking through the archives. But if you go to search Astro_Kimbrough, you're not going to have to go far into Kimbrough to find him. It's Astro_Kim. He's going to pop up. He is right now on the International Space Station. He went up on one of the SpaceX ships, which is pretty cool, one of the Dragons. So follow him, check out his stuff there. Hopefully we can get him back on the show after he comes back. They've got some really cool experiments they're working on. And I think when he got there, then had the most astronauts they've ever had on the space station at one time. And that's 12 people were circling the Earth on the space station.
That's incredible. I was so just blown away when the SpaceX took off and it was a successful mission that I posted in our group. Said, in case you missed it, we had a chance to speak with Georgia's own astronaut Shane Kimbrough last year, and how cool it was to think of him now piloting SpaceX or commanding SpaceX before then landing or docking with the ISS.
Yeah, and I just took a look real quick while we were here. He has some great pictures that have already gone up. He's got one of the Strait of Hormuz. He's got one with the entire crew, the 12 astronauts on the station, and then the coast of Mozambique. So what an amazing perspective on the world you get, and he's sharing that with us. So definitely check those out.
All right, since I didn't get a chance to do my listening, I'll do it very quickly as we're winding down. I do want to mention 2 of the Movies by Minutes podcast. I had been on the Indiana Jones Minute. They had finally decided to embark on the 4th movie, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I was in one of the final episodes before they took what ended up being about a year hiatus thanks to COVID. They went and did a bunch of other side projects and other things, but they've been back at it just in the last couple of weeks, releasing now the newer minutes, and they're going to complete the 4th and final of the films. Of course, if you're living under a rock, maybe you didn't hear this, but some of the casting has already been announced for an Indiana Jones 5, so we'll keep an eye on that. That won't be out for a year or so. But if you want to check out the Indiana Jones Minute, those guys are great. The Close Encounters story, the This Means Something podcast, we're breaking down Close Encounters of the Third Kind 1 minute at a time. They're continuing to work through that movie. That is a great listen. And I was on a special guest on the 60 MW podcast, 60MW now podcast, of their Spotlight Reflection TV shows. It was Chris Jellyman and Adam Perry. They've been breaking down the old 80s sitcom Sledgehammer, about sort of a takeoff, a satire of Dirty Harry, done for a comedic benefit on television. And I sat in on one of the episodes, and that just dropped a couple of weeks ago. So check out that podcast from our friends across the pond, 60MW Podcast. And I won't bother going too deep, but I obviously will endorse Radio Labyrinth and History of the Marine Corps as well. Those are two things I listen to every week.
All right. Well, I'll have to check you out. And we were both on recently the Close Encounters Minute podcast, and there's several others that we just keep dropping as we go. So check out our Facebook page where we try to post those things every time they come out.
All right. As we always do, as we wind down, Walt, let's go through the ABCs, the dot the I's and cross the T's. How do people learn more about us?
If you are so inclined and want to learn more about us, probably the best place is going to be our website, thewilderride.com. And on there, you're going to find our bios, all kinds of other great stuff about us, including a list of past guests and past episodes. So check those out. Also, on any podcatcher, you're going to find us, and be sure and subscribe there. And if you don't mind, just leave a quick rating. A 5 would be awesome. We'd appreciate that. And then you want to go over to facebook.com/thewilderride. Follow us there, and then a button's going to pop up to join our listeners group. You're going to be asked to answer 3 quick questions. Just even put yes. Don't even have to read them, and we'll let you in. We just want to make sure you're not a bot of any kind. And no politics, no craziness, just cool stuff about entertainment and the show. And you're going to find our weekly poll on what movie I'm going to be subjected to. So be sure to take the time to vote for that. Also, if you do have anyone who we might be interested in interviewing, or anybody who you might want to hook us up with, reach out to Alan and I there on Facebook, and we'll be happy to talk to you about that. There are great people out there who we have never met, who we would love to talk to. So take a second to introduce us to your friends.
I do want to do a quick shout out to a couple of our folks, about 9 of them right now, who are supporters financially of our show. We sometimes forget to mention it because we're not in it for the money. The money just goes straight into paying the bills. Honestly, every single bit goes toward hosting fees, website fees, other fees for the software we use. So a huge shout out to 2 of our folks that get the title What a Producer. That's Ross Seymour and Wendy Corson. Thank you so much. We also have a Cheers with the Waco Kid. That's Tara Bain, who was our very first sponsor, and Tara continues to be a sponsor for us on our Patreon page. We've got You're a Good Buddy level sponsors from Rob Smithers, Off the Bounce, which is a basketball podcast with Coach Peacock, and Robert E.G. Black. And then thank you to Friends of Igor. That's Christopher Schmidt. And thank you to Wendy Muller. All of you wonderful supporters. We appreciate all that you do to continue to help financially support our show. If you want to be a financial supporter, it just takes a second. Go to patreon.com/The Wilder Ride. And from $1 up to $20 a month, whatever you think you can do. And there's various tiers. Whatever you feel like you can spare, we know things are tight. We certainly appreciate it.
Yeah, and be sure too to check out some of the streaming services. And if you notice that one of Gene Wilder's movies has come up on streaming, be sure and post that in our listeners group, because we consistently see that every once in a while they'll put up one of his films, but not often. So we want to be sure and support those when they come up, so they will keep Gene in the forefront there for us.
All right. As we always say, take a second to rate and review, if you would, from your podcatcher of choice. And at the very least, use the share function and share the episode so we can spread the word, spread the episode, help us be our marketing engine to get the word out to more and more people out there about our guests and about our love of Gene Wilder. Walt, that's going to do it. Until next week, we do have another great guest lined up here on the Wilder Ride. So come on back next week for another edition of the Wilder Ride Listener's Lounge. Man, this was a fun episode today. I mean, they're all fun.
Man. great guest.
You know what I
Just
love?
a great guest.
I love every time a new episode drops, I get the same exact message from you. This was the best show ever.
They just keep getting better.
Everyone's the best show ever. They're all best. Well, that's great. You know, at some point we'll have to get our good buddy Ryan Rebalkin to do a worst of the best. Since they're all the best episodes ever, what would be the worst of all these best episodes we have?
The BK episode.
Like wild train, roll right off your track. Whoa, whoa, you just can't stop. Like wild train, roll right off your track. Whoa, whoa, watch it, watch it.